and welcome into the latest edition of ESPN FC. I'm Kay Murray, joined in the studio by Craig Burley, and I'm delighted to tell him that Pogba has got a very special pun for his new documentary that's coming out, and I thought you might like it.
He's got a documentary as well?
Yeah, it's called a Pogmentary. That's what it's called.
Pogmentary.
I thought you might like that.
No, I did see it today.
Okay.
No.
No? Okay, well, save it.
I'm kind of speechless.
Well, he wasn't speechless in it. He's actually hit out at Manchester United in it, saying, my thought process is to show Manchester United that they made a mistake in waiting to give me a contract. How can you tell a player you absolutely want him and offer him nothing? Never seen that. We're now welcoming Frank Leboeuf, Shaka Hislop and Julien Laurent, and I'll start with you, Jules, because he is your guy. Now, there is a bit more to this situation, right? But what do you think of what he said?
Yeah, that's right. It was one of the most interesting moments in this little documentary. As you said, five episodes for the documentary, where basically him and Mino Raiola are talking. Mino was still with us when that was filmed, and basically Mino said they have made an offer. It's the same as what you're earning now. And I don't think it's good enough. And Paul says, well, how can someone say they're desperate to keep you and yet don't offer you anything more than what you're already on? For the club's point of view, it's a bit different. They said they made an improved offer worth more money than what he was on at that time. But I guess it's his word against theirs. You can still obviously disagree with him on his reaction on the fact that United didn't make another offer, according to him, like a better one. And that's one of the reasons why he's leaving, because he didn't feel like they really actually wanted to keep him.
What do you think of what he said, Craig?
Well, you'll not be surprised to know that on a scale of 1 to 10, my interest in any of these players making a documentary is not even getting in close to 1.
A Pogmentary.
Whatever. Let's just get to the nuts and bolts of it here, right? Paul Pogba, second time round at Manchester United, has pretty much been a gigantic waste of time and money. And yes, some of that's down to recruitment by the club on managers and coaches and stuff, and the bulk of it is down to him. It's down to him. And quite frankly, if I was at Man United, the only reason I would be making him any kind of offer in the contract, and it would have been on reduced money, was to try and protect a transfer fee. It wouldn't be as a priority to keep him at the club. He's one of the first. If I was coming in as a manager, I'd want to get out. I'm not suggesting he hasn't been and will be successful again in Italy, and he has been before, and he's won the World Cup for France. I'm not denying that. We're not discussing that. This is a Man United discussion, and he has been pretty much, apart from the odd occasion, a total waste of time. So he can go and do filming, whatever he wants, and take his mate Neymar, who's also filming, and doing documentaries and whatever, and underachieving at his club, pretty much. All right, he's beating up on French players, but who cares? So no, I mean, new contracts, Pogba? My God, he must have been shocked when Man United pulled him in and offered him one. That's how bad he was for someone with his talent.
Are you surprised at his reaction, Frank, in his Pogmentary?
This word's annoying me already. And we're only 3 minutes.
Well, first I want to say further that I didn't watch the Pogmentary. And at the end of the day, I think we will never know the truth or what really happened between Manchester United and Pogba, whether they offered him something or not. But I think at the end of the day, the good thing is, I think it's better for Manchester United to not keep Pogba, and it's better for Pogba to not stay at Manchester United and to find another way to enjoy his football. He's going back to Juventus. That's a good thing for him, he thinks. I don't really like nostalgia. The second time he goes back to a former club, hopefully he's going to be more successful than he's been at Manchester United. But as I have to agree with Craig, what he did at Manchester United was, I wouldn't go so far as a waste of time, but it wasn't a success for sure. So giving him more money for a new contract would have been crazy from Manchester United, I think.
But we do know the truth. And it's irrelevant if they offer them contracts or increases or promises. Irrelevant. The truth is, the player did not give them the bang for their buck. That's the bottom line. And he can, and his supporters and his acolytes can throw out all the excuses they want. The truth of the matter is, and that's all we're really interested in, is Paul Pogba wasn't able to give United, whether they signed proper players or not, he wasn't able to give them what they needed, wanted and paid for. That's the cold, hard truth of this. Maybe they could come out with that in a United mentary and say that back. I'll tell you what, if I hear any more words, that word's now banned from this show. It's a fine. It's interesting because I was wondering if on any of Xhaka's big moves, big transfers, he ever thought of making a Xhakumentary. I'm going to flip.
Absolutely not, Kay. I have to say, this is a sign of the differing times that we live in. To your original questions, I'm not that surprised by what Paul Pogba had to say. I think Manchester United, if I were advising Manchester United, I would have told them, offer them no more than Pogba was on right now. Let him go see if he could get that kind of money elsewhere. Clearly he did, so be it. I'm more surprised that, again, we're talking about a player, an active player, making a documentary. I won't frame it any other way because you're in the studio with Craig, Kay. So I'll just keep it as a documentary. I'm surprised that players feel that need. In this day of the game where players earn as much as they do, which we talk about and we don't give them wrong for, there's still this seeming need to build your brand and have all these different ways of making more money from the game. Because as far as I'm concerned, you do that by your performances on the field. Making these documentaries, whatever you want to call it, to talk about what's happening behind closed doors, I think goes against the nature of the game as I knew it from my day. I've nothing really against players, dyeing their hair yellow or orange or doing whatever or making a documentary if they're absolutely tearing it up on the field, right? But he didn't. I'm intrigued to know, Jules, you might know this better than me, being probably closer to this and closer to the player. Does Paul Pogba actually, in his own mind, think that Man United were going to roll out the red carpet with a contract with his performances? I mean, is that where he is, or is this a bit of a bluff from him?
No, I don't think it's a bluff, Craig. I think it's a good question. It's more what they were saying to him, in the sense that they kept saying, we want to keep you, we want you to be a big part in this football club going forward, etc. And he didn't feel that the words were matched by the actions, really. I think this is what it was. I don't know if it was exactly about how many zeros on the payslip every month or every week. It was maybe more about like, okay, you're saying all those great words and this is great. And I think there was a time where he thought, yeah, I could stay here. This was before they were burglared, by the way, with the children in the house. But he was happy at the club, even if the club was underperforming and he was underperforming. But I think he could have seen himself with a new manager staying. But he didn't feel that the words were matched by the offer, really. I think that's the bottom line. So then I think that was the whole thing. And then obviously PSG came and Juventus came and other clubs came. And then he started getting other offers, different offers, some of them better offers. And then I think maybe reevaluating what he wanted to do and where he wanted to go. And then he made his choice to go back to Juventus and to Turin. But I think there was a time where they could have probably convinced him to stay for sure.
I've said this many times, and I still believe it. And I don't deny Pogba's talent for sure and what he's won. But again, I go back to we're judging on Manchester United here. But I do think, in my mind, his game is suited, one, for international football, and two, to play on the continent in Europe, not on the British Isles, where the Premier League is slightly different to other leagues in the tempo and the pace and the physicality. Not that other leagues are not physical, but some of the other leagues are more technical, particularly once you drop out of the bigger teams. And I just think that pace of play and the technical aspect of it suited his game, particularly in Italy. One, it didn't suit his game as much, and the timing of his return to Man United was not great either, allied to his performances with injuries and all that's went with it, and it's been just one disaster, really.
Yeah, so going back to it then, is he going back to Juventus, Jules?
I believe so. There's certainly a full agreement now. The paperwork is not signed, but there's a full agreement. I don't think he would come back on the agreement, and I don't think we will have a twist like a Kylian Mbappe twist in the next few days where he changes his mind and goes to Paris or goes to Madrid or goes to Bayern or somewhere else. So yeah, I think he's there. And just quickly on the point that Craig made, which is a really good point. I don't know if his football is suited to the Premier League because physically and technically he's got everything to be a success in England. He needs a structure around him though, which was not the case at United. United was a circus. I mean, for most of the 6 years that he spent there, it was an absolute circus and a mess. And I don't think that he can play at his best. And again, he's partly to blame, of course, and the injuries didn't help. But I think around him, he also needs to have a structure, to have discipline tactically, which was never the case, really, even not under Mourinho, even when he played a big part in them winning the Europa League, for example. So I think from day one, almost, there was always going to be a struggle. And I'm sure that Juve with Allegri, not that they had a great season that's just finished, but certainly that structure and that kind of discipline will be there.
Frank, what are your thoughts on it all?
I always found complicated to find a spot for Paul Pogba, even when he played for Juventus, when he has his biggest successes at the time and won 4 Scudetti. But the problem with the tactic, and Jules was saying that it was a big mess at Manchester United. It's still complicated to find a room for Pogba. I've seen that with the national team and with Deschamps, and it was a question mark all the time where Pogba should play. Should he play in the middle of the park on the left side or alongside N'Golo Kante? I think the thing is when you have Paul Pogba, you have to accept that he can be free and does what he wants, and then you build the team around him. It worked perfectly. It perfectly worked for Juventus at the time where, especially the last season when he's been absolutely fantastic. But it never been the case at Manchester United because the game or the team didn't belong to him and didn't depend on him. And so it's always complicated. So it's why I don't join Craig when he says it's a waste of time. It was a waste of time. But I can find excuses to any coaches that had to get in charge with Pogba because it's complicated to sort his problem out, and the fact that tactically it's complicated to play with him.
Yeah. Oh, you missed out. When I said waste of time, you did miss out. I said gigantic. For the money.
If it is to be Juventus then, Jules, is this the right move for him, especially with the World Cup on the horizon?
I think it's a good move. One, because, and he says it in the documentary as well, that he wants to play somewhere where he feels appreciated and he feels loved. And there's a lot of players, maybe not the boys that are with us tonight, but there's a lot of players who need to feel like that. And certainly he will feel that at Juventus because he had great years there, because... No. Let me finish. Then you can disagree if you want. I'm just telling you what he said.
No, I'm just saying some of us need love.
It's not me.
No. So, I'm just saying some of us need love.
Craig was a bit of a diva.
I know you. I knew. Yeah, I knew you would laugh at that. But this is certainly the way he sees this. But just to finish on that point, at least over there, he knows that he's going to get a great reception. He's worked with Max Allegri with a lot of success before, like Frank was saying. They're going to be reunited as well. And it's not perfect in Turin. Last season was not perfect, far from it, especially with the ball. And I think they expect him to actually sort some of the problems that they had with the ball in terms of lack of creativity. And you would think that if you're someone like Vlahovic, I think you can enjoy playing with Pogba. Again, if this is the Pogba at his best, 100%, fully fit, no injuries, no doubts, no too much off the field antics and that kind of stuff. So yeah, I think this could be a really good move for both parties, Juve and him.
No, I don't disagree with you, Jules, at all on that point. I was more laughing at the fact that you thought none of us needed any love. We're most hard-nosed looking.
That you weren't high maintenance.
No, but No, I agree. Everybody in a dressing room is different. We've all seen them, and you can't treat every player the same way as a manager and a coach, because it just won't work. There's one approach for what, and it doesn't matter if it's a senior player or a kid or a youngster, inexperienced. You have to be almost a psychologist as a manager and a coach and a coaching team, and you have to look at the characters and what makes them tick, what gets them going, what's going to make them start to worry and put them off the game. And everybody is different. Some, as Jules is suggesting, like Pogba and others, need a little bit of cajoling and cuddling now and again and almost telling them how good they are. So there are these characters within the dressing room, but I think it's a good move all round, I have to be honest. I think it's become stale at Manchester United for both club and for player. Yes, they've got a change of manager and they will sign players. But I do think this sort of stigma of performance has hung over Pogba's shoulders in a United shirt for quite a few years now. And it's almost a weekly occurrence, whether it's us or others, looking at him. And that's maybe more to say where Man United are. And we're always looking at him at the moment to say, how are you dragging this team along? And I think that can wear you down as well. So I think it's a good move in both. It hasn't worked, accept it. He makes a big move again. There's a World Cup coming up. And hopefully we'll see the really good Paul Pogba, but in a proper team. We know Man United are not at the moment a proper team.
Well, there has been a lot of talk about another player leaving the Premier League to go back to the Serie A. That player is, of course, Romelu Lukaku, and he continues to make the headlines in Italy. Lukaku is on his way, say Gazzetta. Corriere also going with Lukaku. Inter, yes, from Chelsea. Word is that Chelsea are prepared to let him go back, but it has to be at the right price. So, Jules, what's the latest here on this move?
Yeah, the latest is that the two clubs have intensified the discussions on negotiation, if you want, over the loan of Romelu Lukaku. It can only be a loan. Right now, Inter Milan have zero money, or certainly not that kind of money to spend on a player like him. There should be a fee for the loan, which still has to be agreed between the two parties, around between the 10 and 15 million euros. So Chelsea will get something, as well as obviously offloading most of his wages. And then obviously Inter really want him. They also want Paulo Dybala, but really want Romelu Lukaku to come back. If the deal happens before June the 30th, the end of the month, they can still do it under the old sort of tax system, if you want, in the sense that you can sign a foreign player, which basically you get a 50% tax discount, pretty much. So it would cost far less to Inter if they do the deal now than if they do it from the 1st of July, for example. Hence the try to rush it and make sure that this deal is done before the end of the month.
These loans, I mean, even this sums the modern game up, doesn't it? How money's driving soccer too much. These fees, and there's speculation at the moment how much, but 5, 10, 15 million for loan fees. I mean, goodness gracious, that used to be bulked out as a transfer fee. Now we're talking about it as that money's gone out as a loan fee, never to be seen again. I mean, it's just staggering, but it's a deal I think that Chelsea have to be able to get done. Inter want it done as well. Obviously they have, as Jules said, they have their financial restrictions. But Chelsea need to get him off because it hasn't worked. The player knows it hasn't worked. He doesn't really want to be there. He wants to be back in Italy. He made that abundantly obvious around about the Christmas time. And obviously that'll free up some wages at Chelsea. Because what's left there, as talented as they are, Ziyech, Pulisic, Werner, Hudson-Odoi, if I missed one out, blah, blah, blah. Mason Mount's the most consistent, but there's nobody getting them the goals to match Liverpool and Man City unless they get somebody in.
How bad a signing was Lukaku for Chelsea?
Well, to be frank, I think a lot of people, myself included, thought it was a pretty good signing at the time. I mean, he did come off a hugely successful period in Italy. He was in the prime of his career, absolute prime of his career. And I didn't see any reasons why he wouldn't come in and score goals in the Premier League. But you never know behind the scenes. Was the player happy? What's his attitude? What does the manager think of him? And so it's not been, with 15 goals, a complete disaster, but it wasn't far off it.
Would you agree with that, Frank?
I have to. I had lots of hopes when he signed, and I said at the beginning of the show that he was coming back to the club that he was loving the most. You know, Chelsea was this dream. He remembered Drogba, and he wanted to do the same. Has been as successful as his mentor, and he didn't. So I was sad because I really thought that he would be as good as he was when he was playing for Inter, and being able to create chances himself and not waiting for crosses. But nothing happened the way it should have been. And I know he might go back to Inter. I want to know how the fans, the tifosi, are going to react to that, because I remember they were very upset towards him when he left Inter to go to Chelsea.
What do you think, Shaka? Do you think it's a shame the way it turned out for Lukaku at Chelsea?
I don't know if shame is the right word to use. It was a huge disappointment, especially when I consider what I thought Lukaku was going to bring to Chelsea, who at the time reigning European champions, give him the starter to management at Chelsea that Thomas Tuchel had. And then the season started so well, and it tailed off for both Lukaku and Chelsea, and it felt like a huge letdown in the end. And if this loan move goes ahead again, like the Pogba deal, it's one that I think is in the best interest of all three parties involved.
Nobody had higher expectations for Romelu Lukaku at Chelsea than Julien Laurent. When we asked for the Premier League predictions at the beginning of the season, he predicted him to be top scorer and player of the year. How were so many, including yourself, so fooled by this, Jules?
It's a good question. I even thought they would win the league, to be fair. I just thought he was the last piece in the jigsaw. A jigsaw that, as Craig said, was already well started under Tuchel. That Tuchel had something so positive going, and that he would just come in and slot in and would do well. But I don't think Tuchel had in the end. I don't think Romelu really wanted to leave Inter. And to go back to the question that Frank just asked, the Tifosi would be delighted, because they never wanted him to leave, and I don't even think he really wanted to go. They had to sell him like they had to sell Hakimi to get the money in, because they were in such a bad financial position, but he didn't want to leave. And I think one of the reasons why he didn't work out at Chelsea, there's many. There's himself, of course. There's Tuchel, who clearly didn't want to adapt his system and the way his team has been playing so successfully to Lukaku's strength. But there's also the fact that I wonder if psychologically he really wanted to be there at Stamford Bridge. So now it would make a lot of sense, but I just thought he would work well. I think, other people as well, but it was one of the biggest, I think, disappointment really that we've seen in recent years for such a big player with such a big transfer fee. Let's not forget, because we haven't mentioned in this whole segment, that it cost them over 100 million euros. Over 100 million euros for then 15 goals in all competition, and such a feeling of failure is one of the biggest disappointments that we've seen in recent years.
He didn't handle the pressure very well, but he brought a lot of it on himself. And I mean, for those Frank, Shaq, and myself who played at the highest level, there's always pressure. But going back to the point Jules was talking about with Pogba, about needing an arm around him, he knows and he knew once he had a great start, once he was successful at Inter, the fans adored them. And he walked on that pitch with the chest puffed out. I think even when he was scoring goals early on at Chelsea, and he was in his second time around, there was still scepticism from the stadium. There was still doubters in that crowd about whether he was the right man and whether he could drive them. And I think once he gave that interview that became so public and so messy around the Christmas and New Year time, the pressure got ramped up 10 times. And then every time he did take the field, the crowd were just waiting on a bad touch or a missed chance or a sitter or something flying over, and they were getting on his back. And so once you do these interviews and stuff like that, you've got to expect it's coming your way, and you've got to be able to handle that pressure, put it behind you, and put on a performance. And lots of factors I know, but he brought that pressure on himself, and I think he knew the Chelsea fans, one, knew that he didn't want to be there, and two, in his mind, I think he thought the fans don't think he was good enough. And I think that was, and what we saw in the end was a player who went on the field with fear, and he wasn't doing that at Inter, and I'm presuming he won't do it if he goes back to Inter. But he was a player that looked scared going on the field about making a mistake in the end.
Now we can keep up to date with the future of Lukaku, Paul Pogba and many more over on our Transfer Talk website. Check out ESPN.com to stay up to date with all the goings on. Real Madrid president Florentino Perez on Spanish television talking about Kylian Mbappe said, "Kylian Mbappe did not betray me. Mbappe told us his dream was to play for Real Madrid. But then all changed in 15 days because of political and economical pressure. France President Emmanuel Macron called Mbappe. PSG offered him to be the leader of the project. It changed everything. I've never said it's over between Mbappe and Real Madrid forever. I never said that. In 3 years, many things can change. But I don't want this Mbappe. The last one is not the same Kylian we wanted. I wanted the real one." Joel, this talk continues. What's your reaction to what Florentino Perez has said there about Mbappe?
Not surprised at all, and remember what we said in the shows that happened just after the announcement that he was staying in Paris. We said from the beginning, this doesn't mean that he will never play for them. I know at the time, a lot of the noise from Madrid was like, oh, this is he betrayed them and they will never ever sign him, he will never wear that shirt. And we said from the beginning, he will. I can guarantee you he will play for Real Madrid one day. And I think what Florentino Perez said last night on Spanish television shows it clearly, that if in 1 year or 2 years or 3 years he wants to leave PSG or he agrees to leave PSG, he will go to Real Madrid and they will welcome him with their arms open, because yes, they were disappointed, of course they were, because they were so convinced he was going, but in the end he decided something else, a different direction. But that doesn't mean that the door will remain closed forever. I never believed that, and I even less believe it now after watching Florentino Perez last night.
But Jules, you're a little bit surprised that it's been just a week and the rumours have already started again about Kylian Mbappe to Real Madrid, even though he's pledged his future to PSG.
But he was so close to joining. So this was always going to happen. His dream to play for them has not disappeared. He's 23 years old. He's got another 10 years easily at the top level, being the best in the world. So we will have this discussion not this summer, not in January, but certainly next summer probably, and then the one after, and every summer until he signs for them. So this is just normal. They want him. There will be a time where Karim Benzema goes, and it will be the perfect replacement. They won't be able to get Haaland, or maybe not in a year's time, maybe 2 or 3 years' time. But with Kylian, it'd be exactly the same. So I'm not surprised, and I would even think that between the Mbappe camp, Mbappe family, and Florentino Perez, the dialogue will still be open now and in the next few months and few years.
Is that how you think it will go, Frank?
Yes, I mean, the comment of Mr. Florentino Perez is very political, you know. And talking about the link between Real Madrid and Mbappe, it already exists. And then Florentino Perez touched that, saying that the mother wanted him to go to Real Madrid. So I guess that's going to be the future connection that they're going to get in order to Mbappe to sign for Real Madrid. I think he said clearly that Real Madrid is the most important thing in a club discussion, and no player should be above it. That we got it according to the difference between Paris Saint-Germain, what has offered Paris Saint-Germain to Mbappe. And he said it was very political, because he said that Kylian Mbappe did never betray him. He said that within 3 years things can change. So I'm not surprised of his comments. As Jules said, you know, we all knew that at some point in the future the connection will be linked again, and at some point Mbappe will sign for Real Madrid if Real Madrid is still the biggest club in the world.
It's interesting for me, Craig, that he said, this is not the same Kylian we wanted, I wanted the real one. What's the real one, the one without this pressure on?
I actually missed that statement when you were reading it because the schedule came out for next week for our work and I was having a little peek at it.
Did you see mine?
No, I didn't see yours, but I've cut the gripes with my schedule, but I'll have a word with the boss later about that. Look, I don't really take much notice of these words at this time. It is no surprise that Florentino Perez is not going to burn these bridges with, and he shouldn't, with any top player, because that would just hurt the club. And it is also not exactly a story that, you know, in a couple of years' time, or whenever it is, Real Madrid will be interested in arguably the best player on the planet if he becomes available. So yeah, I disagree with Jules when he said we'll be talking about it next summer. We'll be talking about this next week, probably. As well as next summer, and the week after that, and then see what happens. And but yeah, he signed his contract. Things change, but I think we know one day, barring a disaster for the player, injury-wise or whatever, he's going to end up a Real Madrid player. And Florentino Perez is not going to burn these bridges, but I don't know why he's going to come out with all that bluff and bluster at this moment in time. When he knows the player has signed the contract.
Do you think it's a bit of a distraction for PSG, though, to still have this chat going on, even though this has been resolved for the immediate future?
No, I mean, Jules and Franco know better than me, but I'm sure there's been discussions when signing a new contract about the potential to make the move happen at some point, with PSG getting a substantial transfer fee rather than seeing Kylian Mbappe walk out on a free transfer, which he was more than entitled to do this summer. So I don't think it's news to the hierarchy in Paris that one day this player has eyes on moving to Madrid.
It wasn't all just talk about Kylian Mbappe from Florentino Perez. You'll be happy to know that the Super League came back up, and he said, yes, the Super League is still alive, of course. We are on it. Champions League football for us has never been in doubt. We've never been worried for Real Madrid to be excluded by UEFA. Jules, I'll come to you again on this one. Your thoughts on what he said and continues to say about the Super League?
Well, again, okay, it's not a surprise. You know, him and Juventus, Barcelona, the three clubs that are still officially remaining in this project, still fighting for it. We know that on July 11th, there's a big court case that will happen where the court will say if UEFA, if those three clubs and the Super League can go on without basically UEFA sanctioning them, to make it simple, which is quite unlikely because there's obviously European court and there's rights and you can't just do everything you want in Europe. But this would be very important to see what happened on July 11th. But you know they're going to keep trying. We mentioned that before. Already the new format of the Champions League is getting closer and closer to what a Super League will look like. So them three who are the forefront of it and have been since day one, we're going to keep trying, whether it's via court and the law or via pressure with money and TV deals and stuff like this. They will try everything because they still believe firmly and strongly that the future is a Super League, whether we agree or not. They believe that. They believe it will bring more money. They will believe that a lot of clubs need that extra money, need more money, always more money. And they I don't think they will ever give up, to be fair.
Okay, well, you can hear a lot more from Jules on the Gab and Jules podcast twice a week. Make sure to download that wherever you do get your podcasts. The Premier League schedule is out for the 22-23 season, and Manchester United have themselves a tough start. So what we've done is we've put match day 1 through 10, what we've seen for Manchester United now that the schedule is out. And to the side of that, you can see the results they had in this fixture last season, just as an idea how it could look if they were to repeat those performances, you may remember, at Old Trafford against Liverpool, losing 5-0.
Far from me to throw... what's the terminology you use here? Scupper this segment. Although I've scuppered many a segment over the years, it has to be said, that's had producers banging their head on the wall. But listen, there's two things. One, you have to play these teams anyway. And I understand, new manager, wanting to get off to a good start, positive, blah, blah, blah. However, I'm looking at that graphic, and I'm not thinking that's a dreadful start.
Right.
Brentford and Brighton. Brentford, Championship side did well.
They did only win 4 of those games last year, what we were looking at there. 4 of 10.
Yeah, but they were garbage last year. Absolutely garbage. They were a shambles. They had a shambles of a manager, then they had a shambles of an interim manager, they had a shambles of a team, they had a shambles of a captain. Of course, they only won 4 of them. They were a shambles. So I'm looking at those games, Brentford and Brighton are a good side, but they've just sold Basuma. Potter's a good manager. Yeah, then they've got Liverpool. I think Leicester had a bad season by their standards. There's loads of teams in there, Everton, Crystal Palace, decent under Patrick Vieira. In fact, they were better than decent last year. But it's not exactly a sleepless night start to the season. You're Manchester United, you're going to sign players, you get a new manager. So it's not as if it's like City, Chelsea, Arsenal, Palace, Liverpool. It's not like that. I mean, it's not that hard.
So let me
I'm asked up on this segment.
No,
I hope I am, because that's not a tough start.
Okay, if it's not a tough start, if Erik ten Hag does struggle at the start of the season, how much trouble is he going to be in? Bearing in mind as well, there's going to be a break in play for the World Cup.
None. Not a sausage. Middle of the donut. That. 0. Right? United can't keep hiring and firing. He's got a great resume. We know he's a good coach. He needs time in there. There's a lot of dead wood. He's not going to get them all out. They're not sacking him. They lose 6 games in a row, they're not sacking him. I mean, we've got to get our head around this. It's not happening. They've made changes. Ed Woodward's not there anymore. There's changes in the football department. There's changes at the structure of the club. They've made on the face of it, they've made one of the best decisions to have for a long time. He's going to get time. This manager is going to get time because he has the credentials and the CV to do the job.
Frank, was that you I heard a from?
Excuse me?
I heard in the background when Craig said none, he's going to be in no trouble. I heard someone go, and it sounded like you.
I agree. No, it wasn't me. I agree with Craig. I think there is no danger for the coach, because I think Manchester United needs stability. And if I properly recall, I think it wasn't the fantastic success at the beginning for Sir Alex Ferguson, but they let him work quietly and making sure that the success will come over. And I think it's what's going to happen. And they have Brentford and Brighton for the first 2 games. If they win the 2 games, it's going to be 6 points. And after you go with the flow. And that's what it is in a football club, in the dressing room. You win 2 games and it goes well. If they lose those 2 games, that's going to be a problem. I don't think the coach is going to be sacked, but I think it's going to be a very bad time for the players, because at some time, you have to point the players. You have to see, because the players that you are hiring with a high wage, you have to tell them and put them in front of their responsibilities. It cannot be the coach every time. It has to be the players at some point.
How do you see it, Jules? How important will a good start be for this Manchester United side under Ten Hag?
I mean, it's a cliche to say that it's always great if you can start well and win your first 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 games, of course. I don't know how realistic it is to be asking for that kind of thing when it's a new manager, when we expect him. Well, it looks already that it's going to be a big overhaul of that dressing room and the squad, because already a lot of free agents have left. Pogba, Matic, Lingard, Mata, all of them. Some new faces will come. Some will come soon, others will come probably late in this transfer window, and the season might have already started. So we saw with Arsenal, for example, last summer that the first 3 games of the season they could not play any of the 6 signings that they made in the summer, for example. So it's a very different team that you might start with and play your first 2 or 3 games than the one that you'll be able to field for the last 2 weeks of August, for example. So this all has to come in consideration. That's why I agree with Craig. It's difficult to look at those fixtures and start drawing a lot of things and reading a lot of things in them, because we don't know what team will be available for any of those teams, any of those managers. For all we know, Darwin Nunez might be injured in pre-season, might not be able to play the first games for Liverpool. Same with Holland and City. So you don't know who will be able to play, who will be fully fit, who won't be, for what kind of games. It's always so difficult to kind of predict in a way.
We do know, though, that the Premier League schedule, as mentioned, is out for the new season. When you were playing...
Well, it's out. Somebody's been looking at it in our department.
When you be looking at... I mean, they've done more than look at it, haven't they?
Is that where Man United have dropped to? They're looking at Brighton and Brentford and thinking that's a tough start?
Probably not.
Yeah.
But listen, when you were a player, how much attention did you pay to the release of the schedule ahead of the season?
None.
None.
Absolutely none whatsoever. I don't ever remember knowing... I mean, you knew a couple of weeks before. I don't ever remember looking at a schedule. None. None. The only time I ever looked at upcoming fixtures was when I went back to England for the second time to Derby and they were struggling. And I couldn't see a win coming when I looked at the squad we had, and so I started worrying about who we were playing the next week because it was a struggle in the Premier League. But apart from that, no, I didn't look too far ahead. I never as a player looked at a Premier League or Premiership, whatever it was called then, fixture list. Never.
Frank, you've got your hand up.
Yeah, me, I was looking at the the winter time, you know, with Christmas for Boxing Day to know if we had to play at midday or not, and especially the for Christmas Eve, you know, to make sure that if we have the chance to play only the 2nd, like that, we could party a little bit the 31st, you know, and not go to bed at midnight to play at 12 the day after when I was playing in England. So yeah, that was just the only thing that I was looking at. After that, you know, you have to play all the teams and you know all of them, and you know it's going to happen. So you don't really care about that.
People must. People think professional footballers are like those people that sit playing FIFA all the time and get super excited. You know what I mean? It's like players don't sit. Maybe there are some now. I don't know. Certainly, I don't know of any that sat there waiting for the schedule to come out and go, oh look. Do you know what I mean? It's like, hey, it's a new season.
So you'd never ring a teammate and go, have you seen that we've got them for the first game?
No, never. And nobody. I don't know anybody that ever did. Hey, it's a new season, you do your pre-season training, you might have a new coach, you might not, and then you plough on regardless.
I'll tell you what though, you've got your eye on the schedule for next week here, so things
they're making me work next week.
So now he's upset about that. Let's continue though with the chat on Darwin Nunez going to Liverpool, because I know they were talking about it on the show yesterday. This was Jurgen Klopp on his new player saying it's important we all recognise we are getting a work in progress with Darwin. He recognises that himself for sure. We have wonderful attacking options already and he becomes part of that now. So there is no pressure on him at all. He signs for a very long time and we intend to nurture his talent and see it grow. Now yesterday Stevie said that this was the perfect thing for Klopp to say. So basically he's going to give him time, he's going to ensure that the pressure isn't on him. Would you agree with that, Craig? This is a very expensive player coming in. Is it right to be saying it's okay, he's going to get time and we're not going to have any pressure on him?
Well, what's the opposite? Klopp to say, if he doesn't hit the ground running, I'm going to drop him. I mean, no manager worth of salt is ever going to say that. And he is correct in what he's saying, and in some sense it's the same at Man City. If Haaland is struggling or Darwin Nunez are struggling, and it's unlikely bearing in mind the talent of those two players, but it can happen, they have a support system around them that means that, guess what, they can score goals without a frontline striker. They've done it, both of these clubs. Liverpool have done it this season pretty much, and Manchester City have done it for 2 seasons with some notable success. So in that sense, there is less pressure on these there's always going to be pressure, particularly when Haaland comes in.
Yeah, but look at Grealish. Last season, everyone kept mentioning his price tag all the time. Don't you think that's going to happen with a player like this if he doesn't hit the ground?
Yeah, but guess what? Pep Guardiola took him out the side and said, hey, 100 million or not, if you're not playing well enough, I've got a support network around with other players that can come in and do a better job. Yeah, it brings a focus on the player and the club for the outlay. And there is always going to be a pressure. But I think what we have here is 2 players coming into 2 teams, and particularly, as we're talking about Darwin Nunez, under a manager and a club that have a great recruitment, already have players there that can score goals. And don't forget, Bobby Firmino's still there. He didn't have a good season, but he's still there. And so if Darwin Nunez doesn't bag 10, 15 goals by Christmas, it doesn't mean Liverpool are not going to win the title. It doesn't mean Liverpool are going to be out the Champions League. But if he comes in and hits the ground running, like he did last year, certainly at Benfica, then it's going to take a great lot of pressure off the rest of the players. So I don't see how Klopp are going to look at this in any other way. He's not 29, he's 22, he's got time.
So you agree with Stevie that it was pretty much the perfect thing for Klopp to say about his new player?
Well, it's the only thing for Klopp to say, otherwise he's going to bury him. I mean, if you say, I'm expecting 35 goals and he scores 12, you're not going to do that. So, look, Klopp's a shrewd guy. This is a young man. Liverpool give players time. It's not a problem. I don't think the player will need time, I have to be quite honest with you. I think he's going to be well suited to the Premier League and Liverpool and Klopp. But it's just a smart thing to say.
Jules, what are you expecting from Nunez and his start at Liverpool?
I expect big things like everyone. Maybe we need a bit of time to adapt, of course. We've seen it with some of the players in that squad, Fabinho, for example. We've seen a very quick adaptation from others, like Mo Salah or Virgil van Dijk or Luis Diaz. So maybe we'll need a bit of that time to really settling in and to adapt, or maybe not. One thing for sure, though, I don't think the pressure gets to him. I understand what Klopp said, and Stevie and Craig are right. This is the right thing to say, of course. The only thing to say, I don't think pressure would be an issue. This is someone who was born and grew up in poverty, who had to work very hard for anything, even to put food on the table. And it was not easy at Peñarol. He had injuries. It was not easy to go in the second division in Spain. And believe me, they play 1,000 games a season there. And it's a proper fight. And he came out of that and then go to Benfica. Again, average first season because of injuries mostly. And then to come back and fight the way he did in this past season was pretty impressive. And now this is the big move that he wanted. And I don't think he's so hungry. And I think Klopp mentioned that as well. There's so much hunger and there's so much desire and willingness to do well, that fighting spirit, that very Uruguayan mentality that we've seen in other players like him before. I've got no doubt he's got the mindset and the character to be a big success there anyway.
Understandably, there's been a lot of talk about Darwin Nunez, and you can keep up to date with all of it if you check out our YouTube page. While you're there, if you haven't already, make sure you subscribe. If you thought Shaka's Power Rankings were on a summer break, you're wrong. This is the international Power Rankings from Shaka. Would you like to talk us through them, Shaka?
Sure, Kay. Where do you want me to start? I'll start by saying there can be no arguing with the rankings this time around. Heavy European bias with the Nations League going on. Germany in at 10, that's a little bit of a surprise. Croatia, Uruguay are in third place. South American team. Hungary, that's the only surprise. Timing is everything. Top of their Nations League group, and then you beat England. That deserves a little bit of a nod. Had this been done a couple of weeks ago, I'm not sure they'd been there, but enjoyed while it lasts. Hungary, Denmark, who've won 4 of their last 5 at 6. Senegal in at 5th. Netherlands, who've been simply outstanding in the Nations League, in at 4. Spain, the top-ranked European team. Brazil, and my pick to win the World Cup, Argentina, sit atop of the most perfect international power rankings ever seen.
Hold on, did I just hear that? His pick, Argentina?
To win the World Cup.
Yeah.
Would you like time to have a little think about that, Mr. Hislop?
I've been saying it for a while, though. I've been saying it. I'm putting my neck on the block.
Is Messi going to go into a time warp and come back out as a 25-year-old? I mean, what's the story here?
That's my call, Craig. That's my call. Reigning European.
Why not? They've been doing
South
well.
American champions.
They've been doing. Lots of teams do well when it's not the World Cup. I mean, they're a solid outfit, but I looked at the team the last time out. Lots of players in it. I mean, Otamendi still played, Lo Celso. Yeah, Messi had a great game. I think it was the last time out, I can't remember. But as I said to you a couple of weeks ago, the majestic Messi, the majestic magician that he was, and that's not him anymore, couldn't drag Argentina to World Cup victories when he was in his prime. going to put a lot of pressure on the rest. No, I don't see that.
Jules, what do you make of the power rankings? You understand why France have dropped out?
Is it like, what, is it Shaka the bookmaker? Is it World Cup predictions? Is it actually the most informed team right now? What? Because I'm a bit confused now. Where is Portugal? Where is Norway, who've had a great international break? I mean, Senegal is in there after beating Rwanda 1-0. I'm sure they deserve to be in that top 10 for sure, than beating Rwanda. I'm sure Shaka would have beaten Rwanda as well. I'm a bit confused.
Shaq, come on. Come on, Shaq. Jules, he doesn't know how serious.
Senegal have to be in there. They're the reigning African champions. They threw the World Cup. They have to be in there.
Yeah, true.
Germany just beat Italy 5-2. How did they get demoted 4 places?
Germany are what? Second. Germany have drawn 4 of their last 5. That's where they're down there.
You've made that up. Yeah,
Pull it out from here, right?
It's all the data. It's all about data.
It's got it all in the. It's all in the
Like
database.
25.
Rin.
I'm showing my age there. All right, you'll be hearing
Shaka
more.
was overseeing the Nations League and all the teams. I'll have that bet. I'll have that bet.
I was trying to find a way to get Trinidad and Tobago in, but I couldn't.
Frank, you get the final say on it. What do you think of Shaka's international power rankings?
I'm okay with that. I'm happy to not see France and England because they don't deserve to be in it after their results. About Norway, it could have been Greece as well, or some other teams who got the full points. But I understand Shaka, he took only the top groups of the Nation League. So I understand that. And I'm happy to see Senegal being in it because they can be my favorite for the World Cup.
Ah, nice. Well,
First African team to win the World Cup.
I'm just going to say, you've got to give Shaka some credit because it's not easy. It's not easy scrolling through these.
He loves doing
these
it.
games.
It's his favourite part of the week.
But you've got to give it to him. The one thing, if anything else, Shaka is consistent. That's international power rankings. It's consistency personified.
Oh, you gotta love it. I just love that Jules tore it apart. We're gonna let Jules do the mic drop now anyway.
That felt kind of backhanded.
It's a compliment.
It is a compliment.
It's a compliment.
But,
it's consistent.
Yeah,
next
backhanded. I'm sweating now.
Well, you got to stick around a little later, Shaka, because you're going to be on extra time tonight with Frank and Craig.
Listen,
yeah.
my clock's running.
Make sure to subscribe to our YouTube page, and you can always stay up to date with Extra Time, where the panel answer your tweets. World Cup host cities was announced on Thursday. They are the cities that you can see here. Some great news for many of these cities, host cities. We were just saying, Craig, weren't we, how many fabulous stadiums there are in this part of the world?
Oh, there's absolutely no doubt it's going to be a great World Cup. But I think we here in the US, we have some marvellous, up-to-date modern stadiums for these supporters. So yeah, it's going to be great.
Yeah, Mexico.
But nothing in Connecticut.
Nothing in Connecticut.
So we're
stuffed. We're going to have to be on our travels.
Talk about travelling.
Seb and Herc will be talking a lot more about these host cities on the next edition of Football Americas. Make sure to check that out tonight. All right, that will do it then for the latest edition of the ESPNFC.
I'm worn out with Shaka's
get
power.
ready. We've got Extra Time coming up next with yourself, Shaka and Frank.
No documentary talk.
See you next time. Stick around, Extra Time. Welcome into the latest edition of Extra Time. Craig Burley has been delighted to hear about the Pogmentary, Pogba's new
just finished the show, didn't even have time to go for a cup of tea.
And he's here alongside Frank and
Tell you what,
Shaka.
if that word comes up, right, we've got it out of the way today. What's it called again?
Pogmentary.
Pogmentary. What a load of nonsense. We've got it out of the way today. We've got it out there. We've had a discussion about it. Let's never mention it again.
You know that every question will continue to be about this now.
We never, ever mention it again.
Can we not say Pogmentary, guys?
Pogmentary.
I just did it. All right. First question is for you,
That's
Craig.
what it's called.
Oh, you'll be happy to know, though, it doesn't feature in the first question.
What do you mean? You're talking to me. Talk to me.
All right.
Talk to me. What are you talking
Craig, Xhaka is the mayor of Newcastle, and Frank has stadiums named after him.
Yeah.
Is there anything named after you somewhere? Make something up if not.
No. Would be the answer. What? I don't know.
A pub.
A pub.
A pub. Did anyone ever tell you I named my son after you?
His dog.
Yeah, people might name a dog after me. I can't repeat some of the words.
What would you call your own documentary?
A pile of something.
A guffmentary.
Garbage-mentary.
Pogmentary.
Guff-mentary. A drivel-mentary. A who cares mentary. A not bothered mentary.
I couldn't give a stuff mentary.
Couldn't give a stuff mentary. Why are we talking about this again? Mentary. Something like that. No, nothing been named after me.
Yeah.
I'm still waiting in my statue outside Celtic Park. It's not happening. I'm waiting. But no. Frank's got a what named after him? A stadium? Just drop this.
Stadiums, plural. Yeah,
Oh,
look, he's just chilling.
Me?
He's like,
No, that's
yeah.
no.
Xhaka loves a freebie.
No, I have a
he's
stadium,
in
I have a park, and I have a gymnasium. I have
There you
three
go.
stuff named
Oh.
after me. Yeah.
So that's the benchmark.
Yeah.
Boy.
Right.
Exactly.
Ale mentioned on yesterday's show that he once played on a field where it was so hot that the cleats actually started melting. So his boots actually started
Studs.
melting. The studs.
Cleats, studs.
What's the worst condition you've
Wow.
ever played a game in?
Oh, I know.
Frank, go on.
I know. Definitely Champions League game in Tromsø, which is 500 miles to the North Pole, and we played there against Tromsø. We lost 3-2. We had to stop playing because we couldn't see the line in the second half 3 times because of the snow. It was fantastic. I mean, that was so funny. I remember jumping with a striker and falling into the snow and hurting my head, and the striker got a little bit of ice or snow and said, "Do you need some ice?" You know, and put it in my face. We were laughing at it. We couldn't stop the game because of I think the schedule was impossible to rearrange. So we had to finish the game, and we finished the game. We lost 3-2. We won the second leg 7-0, I think. But it was a very crazy experience. I think it was only a daylight for 4 hours at that time. That was intense. That was very intense.
Xhaka?
To start this season, to start the MLS season in 2007, Dallas played away to LA, and then we played away to New York Red Bull. For the New York game, a nor'easter blew in. It was freezing cold. It was wet. At halftime, 2 players, one of the Dallas center halves, and the goalkeeper for New York had to be substituted with hypothermia. That's how bad it was.
Soft.
Oh, wow.
Soft.
Anything stand out to you?
Well, playing up in the north of Scotland in Aberdeen in the middle of the week, cold, wet, freezing. But the worst I kind of could cope with that. I played in DC in the 90s in Maryland, and it was the humidity. But that was before I was that was before I was Americanized. I'm used to that now. But back before then, I was, anything above 65, and I was in trouble. So I love the heat now, but there was the heat and the humidity in DC. It was around the end of May time. So it's not so much the heat, but more the humidity. I don't know why it is down there. It's so humid, but it was. Who's
It's awful in DC.
Right, there you go. I knew there was an expert in the house. Shaq.
No, I went to the season then.
you know, guys,
but I wasn't
5
playing.
years, and it is awful.
Yeah.
Yeah. I was actually glad I was wearing black
You know
because
what-
I
what
felt
I-
like everyone was just sweating.
Shaq could do a power rankings of the most and worst humid places to play.
Starting in his house with no air conditioning.
Well, of course. Nobody has to pay for it.
I played in Qatar for 2 years, guys, and the
Oh.
first training session that I made. It was mid-August. I went there. I went to train at 9 p.m. It was still like 40 degrees Celsius. So I don't know. I think it's 100 and something at 9 p.m. And I was running with a pack of ice because it was so hot. That was absolutely insane, I tell you. 2 years after, I played the final of the EMEA Cup, same time of the season, same temperature, and I was running like a baby. Like, I was very used to it. It's crazy how the body can adapt to the situation. But at the first time, it was
like a baby.
nightmare.
Yeah, how do you run like a baby? Fall over, right up. We bosh.
Yeah. Like happy and crazy without, when you can walk.
We know what you meant.
We used to go to Hong Kong and Thailand and stuff at the end of the season.
Thank you very much.
Chelsea. I tell you, one of the places we went to, it was really hot, was Brunei. And this is brilliant. We went, now at the end of a long hard season, the players usually want to go somewhere where they can have, how can I put this? Some camaraderie, a few beers. Maybe play a match against a team for the fans there, blah, blah, blah. And somebody gets, the club gets some money. Anyway, Ken Bates at the time decided part of the trip was going to be to Brunei. And we would end up in the Sultan of Brunei's palace, right? And this guy was at one point, he was the richest man in the world, wasn't he? He's like, built his own theme park
the Sultan of Brunei,
yeah, the Sultan, yeah. But in Brunei, it's dry. Well, it was then. Couldn't have a beer, right? Now, it's been a long, hard season. That did not go down well with the players, trust me, in the hotel. I honestly thought there was going to be killings between each other. But wait, Frank, was you on that trip?
Yes, we were on that trip. We went to Hong Kong, then Brunei, then Bangkok. And it's true that we couldn't have a beer in Brunei. It was very, very hot. And do you remember getting to the loo, the restrooms, and they were golden?
Yeah.
They were in gold because the guy was so rich.
Tell you what, though,
that was the kind of experience.
He had 10-pin bowling alleys in his house, everything,
Wow.
and he was followed around.
And you guys were there.
We were there. Lend us a few quid, will you? And we were, but he was followed around, if memory serves me right, and it looked like it was ex-SAS or Special Forces guys who were now being paid by him, and they would follow him pretty much around all the time as his security. I mean, it was pretty scary. It was a good experience, but we couldn't have a beer. It was a long season. How would Stevie have coped?
I don't know if he would have. I don't know if he would have. Next question. How good was Matt Letizia, considering he spent his career with a weaker club?
No, brilliant. And you can look at Matt Letizia not moving to other clubs and blah blah blah. And was he good enough? Yes, he was. Some of the goals that he scored. Well, you know this, don't you? Some of the goals he scored a lot of the goals he scored were special goals. I mean, properly special goals. But he made that decision to stay in Southampton, and that was his decision.
Xhaka?
I've always said I found Matt Letizia to be the hardest opponent I played against. I mean, he was an absolute nemesis. He could do, and from a goalkeeper perspective, he could do anything with the ball with the same exact backlift. He could drill it, he could chip you, he could bend it with the same exact backlift. So as a keeper, you had no idea what was coming. And honestly, of everybody I played against, Matt Letizia easily was the one I hated playing against most. Easily.
I definitely didn't want to sit in front of you on the penalty spot, right, Xhaka?
Okay.
Go on, Frank.
Okay, I think Michel Platini tried to make him French because he had the double. He could have been French because of his situation. He was born in New Jersey, I think.
Jersey.
And, so he could have been Jersey, New Jersey. Jersey Island. So he could, and his name is French, and he could have been French. And I think Michel Platini was when he was the head coach of the national team, tried to get him the French nationality in order for him to play for the French team. Absolutely fantastic player. I had the chance to play against him. Fantastic.
Could have won the World Cup with Frank.
Could have done.
Yeah.
Could have done.
Maybe. Well, it would have been fighting against Zidane.
If Matt Letizia had won the World Cup with Frank, would he then have walked around with the World Cup on his head for the next 20 years? Not sure he would.
All right. Seeing as though you love talking about schedules.
Well, I don't only my schedule.
Well, with the new Premier League schedule out, we've got...
The new Premier League schedule's out.
It's out, yeah.
Well, the most important thing between my schedule for next week and the Premier League schedule, I don't care a jot about the Premier League schedule.
All right, well, let's see how you went to this question. You might care a little bit more because there is a more personal link to it.
No,
all right.
I'm making an early decision. I don't.
Newcastle United, West Ham United, Everton, Tottenham Hotspur, Manchester City, Bournemouth. How many points does Craig think Forest will attain in their first 6 fixtures?
Right, one sec. All right, let me read these teams. Depends who they sign. There's always an out here. It depends what players they bring in. Where are the games? I don't know if they're home or away. Newcastle, West Ham, Everton, Tottenham, Man City, Bournemouth. I'm going to say 4.
4.
9.
No, it's going to be difficult. No, Newcastle are going to spend again.
3.
West Ham, Everton are going to be better. Tottenham have already signed. City, yeah, maybe 1 win, 1 draw. Not many is the answer, unfortunately.
All right. Seeing as though we've been talking about winning the World Cup and Shaka's power rankings in the show today, we're going to ask who is the best side to never win the World Cup? Is it the Netherlands of the 1974 and 1978 World Cups, Brazil of 1982, or someone else?
Brazil 82.
Brazil 82.
It's a good job Dan's not here, in general, because he...
Not nice.
He knows I'm joking.
He does.
Maybe.
The Netherlands, 1974.
Sebi always says...
Netherlands, guys, you were too young.
Sebi always says, why do you guys treat me so
young.
badly? And I say, what? And we treat Dan nice? You're not watching the shows? But he always gets bored when I say 1982 World Cup, Dan, because that's the first one I watched properly. And it was brilliant. But that team with Socrates, Zico, Falcao, Junior. Unfortunately, they had Serginho up front. He wasn't the best. But the rest of them, oh my God, that was a brilliant team. We got put out by Italy. Paolo Rossi, back after his ban. This is a history lesson, isn't it?
It is. It is.
Back after his ban, Bosch, hat-trick, Brazil out. Brilliant team though.
Frank, you're going even older though.
Yeah, well, he is older.
Yeah, that's true.
Yeah, I'm older. 1974, the first World Cup that I followed. Johan Cruyff, Johan Niskens, Rudy Krol, and so many others. I mean, that team was absolutely fantastic. The Netherlands 1974, they should have won the World Cup, but lost against Germany in Germany, and against Beckenbauer, Müller, Breitner, and some other Voxt. And but what a generation! I think it would have been the Netherlands for me.
Do you want a very uninteresting fact? My old manager was in that Dutch side.
Oh yeah?
Yeah.
Who was your old manager?
I told you it was a very uninteresting. Vimy Janssen, who passed away a few months ago.
You actually do have some good stories about Vim, yeah.
And he never talked about it because we never asked him. But he was part of that great that great Dutch era.
We never asked Frank, Craig. We never asked Frank about the World Cup.
We never asked Frank about the World Cup, but he tells us about it.
Yeah,
I know, imagine
but there's
that,
a
Frank.
difference. One lost it.
Not winning a World Cup.
One lost it, and the other one won it. That's the difference.
And
I think
don't we know
would have talked about it.
Don't we bloody know it?
We'll end it there anyway. Thank you so much, guys, for the story time and for the reminder that Frank Leboeuf did win the World Cup. You can catch us tomorrow, same time. Same
Yes, I did.
place.